Hello, and welcome to the show. It is July 6th, 2025. I'm Eric Murphy. This is Skeptic Generation, and we need to talk. With me today is Tori. Tori, it's so good to see you. How's it going?
Hello. I am here. I'm happy to be with you. How things are going generally, one can say or speculate.
I swear. So,
Avoid.
There's been so much stuff going on in the news. The number of callers who've wanted to talk to you in particular that I've said, hey, let's push off. Let's wait until Tori's back. I'm so glad that you're here. So you celebrated your birthday since you've been gone. So late happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, getting older.
Hey, same here.
As one does.
Actually, my birthday's in 3 days.
Yeah,
turning 38.
Happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Right? I tried hard. I worked at it. So where do we even catch up on, over a month? So much has been happening. And I think my brain is actively running away from it. You've talked to me about things and my brain actively goes, anything else. Like I have this avoidant behavior, and I think that's really not a good thing. But what's going on? What's on your mind? I titled the name of this episode Live from the Alligator Pit.
I mean, that's what they're calling their concentration camp. They made a cutesy little name for it, instead of being all serious and whatever. It's haha. It's just a joke. You're taking it too seriously, right? So that's the thing that's happening right now in Florida is building camps to keep people who have not been charged with a crime, which is unconstitutional, but that doesn't currently matter apparently, which is a little nerve-wracking, right? So and I've noticed a lot of people actually online have been sharing the actual dictionary definition of a concentration camp, because a lot of people associate that very specifically with World War II. And like the regime in Germany at that time. And so people are like, well, is it really? And it's like, yeah, no,
yes.
it's internment. Like we've done it here in the US before. Although I would say, how do you even say? It's like if you have like your whole family with you and you have the freedom to move around, it's still internment, right? It's not the middle of an alligator pit. But we actually, we've done this before where we've taken people from their homes and their families and taken all of their property and put them in cages with no release date. Yeah. Again, is technically illegal, but we don't really do. Laws are like a vibe now, right? Strong recommendations if you depending on the day and what day the Supreme Court is having, right? So there's a lot.
It reminds me of 2015, 2016, learning about up and coming Rodrigo Duterte from the Philippines.
Yeah.
And how there was this idea that this kind of fascist stuff won't fly, and it absolutely did. He got elected. He famously sent a Christmas address out saying "Merry Christmas" to the criminals of the Philippines, and he hopes that they enjoy it because it will be their last.
That's a really interesting parallel, though, because the idea there, right, was that he was like, oh, my God, drug crime, right? Him and his supporters, Duterte's supporters, were like, drug crime. If we just kill all of the drug dealers, there will be no more drugs. Yeah. Problem solved. Mission accomplished. And but what that meant was extrajudicial killings of anybody that was accused of being a drug dealer. And like, what's the legal limit of like if somebody accuses you of being a drug dealer, but you never get your day in court because the cops are authorized to just execute you on the spot and take off?
Yeah.
What's the point of having laws then, right?
I think that in the Philippines, and there is an analog here, and I want to draw this comparison because I believe Duterte was from Mindanao, which is the southern part of the Philippines,
Oh, okay.
which is kind of the area where like you have a larger Muslim population, and so you hear the horror stories of like tourists going to the wrong part of the Philippines and getting beheaded, that kind of thing.
I've never heard this before.
No,
Interesting.
yeah,
No, not
yeah.
once.
I was in a long term relationship with a Filipino who ran me through a whole bunch of stuff.
Wow. Okay.
But
I just
like,
thought like former U.S. colony, lots of
well,
probably pretty safe now. That
oh,
was my
oh, oh, no,
assumption
no.
growing up, right?
So most of it is, and beautiful, amazing food, incredible people. And I would highly suggest, anybody who has the chance to go there, or like, I adore it. I still cook a lot of Filipino food. Like, nothing against the Philippines. I think the reason I bring it up though, is because I feel like there are groups that we turn the other way when it comes to violence. We turn the other way when it comes to breaking the law, and I think that kind of religious exemption did that. And I think the Philippines actually probably had a better excuse. I mean, before US colony, it was a Spanish colony for 500 fucking years.
Yeah.
Like you had
Oh
a
boy.
you had a people that was so deeply under the thumb of this, colonial like regime that
Yeah.
the pieces of culture that they kept were ones that they held on to and hid, and
Yeah.
it's absolutely wild. But I think that Duterte came from a view of the world that
Hmm.
doesn't recognize the kind of legal systems we put into place. And I think that that made it easier for him ethically, morally, however he did it, to justify in his mind this idea that
Hmm.
we're just going to kill all the drug dealers.
Right.
I think that in the United States, I'm sure you agree with me that if you are wealthy enough, laws don't apply to you, not for the most part.
Hmm. Yeah.
And the the things that they get away with, you see, Jesus, it had to get up to fucking what was it, Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein for somebody to finally do something. And even then, how many people are still not in trouble for child trafficking? You know,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
it's absolutely insane. The number of people who've been killed, who will never see justice because, or there will never be justice because the wealthy and the powerful are the ones who did it. And I think that Trump comes from that world, and I think that he justifies that kind of moral and ethical behavior. He couches it that way, and I think it's easier for him to do that because that's where he comes from. Because we culturally have created a system that has fostered that, you know.
Yeah.
But it still is that. I mean, fucking hell, Tori. We learned about the U.S. creating concentration camps, or what's the nicer word for it?
Internment camps.
Internment camps, sure.
Yeah.
And I at the time I was living in Southern California. I was living by in Ventura County, and at the Ventura County Fairgrounds was a Japanese internment camp. So it was right by,
Oh.
there was one right by where I lived. And you hear it and you go, "Oh man, this is our dark past," you know? And no, like we're recreating it again. And how embarrassing is it that, like, with the same feeling that I shook my head and went, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what the Philippines is going through when it comes to Duterte," we now get our own tin pot dictator who's creating concentration camps.
Hmm.
What do we even do?
Wow, that's a great question. What do you do? This is actually really interesting, something I've been thinking about,
Yeah.
because when I first heard about um, this this specific concentration camp that they are jokingly referring to as Alligator Alcatraz and selling merch for to fund, apparently, um, I had this moment where I sort of reflected on, we grew up, if you grew up and went to school in the US, you definitely learned about like Nazi Germany, and you also learned about Anne Frank hiding in the attic and then
Mm.
being taken away by, some goons and murdered by the state,
Yeah.
right? And I always thought in that sort of a scenario, man, it must have been really a scary moment for the people that hid Anne Frank and her family to, it must have been so terrifying for them every single day to know that they were breaking the law in this way, and trying to save Jewish people's lives. And like, what an incredible inspiration that they were like, oh no, this is something that we're really willing to like put, like, act on our values. And I always thought it would be the most terrifying thing. And I heard about this, again, the concentration camp, and I was like, oh, there's like a lot of moral clarity here for me. That like hiding people away from like extrajudicial killings is like, doesn't actually seem complicated. It doesn't
No.
seem terrifying. It's like, nope, actually that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Because even according to our own laws, it would be the right thing to do to like rescue people from being murdered just because they happen to be like murdered by the state without any kind of a trial, without their day in court. Like, okay, maybe that's a little questionable or fuzzy in like the US legal system, but like ethically, it's very clear. It's very straightforward that like, oh yeah, that was the right thing to do. And it doesn't actually, I'm shocked at how not scared I feel at the proposition of like having to save someone's life from the state.
Yeah. Absolutely. It feels good. That part does feel good. I remember the first time somebody told me, if you're at the grocery store and you see someone stealing food, no, you didn't.
Yep.
And the quickness with which my brain made an entire shift around morals when it comes to theft. I was happy about that. I guess I am. Yeah. If people are getting disappeared, and you know what? Actually, I'm going to keep this vague, and we're not going to wind up on a list today.
Yes.
So what else is going on? Or actually, wait, I should put out the phone number, shouldn't I? Yeah,
absolutely.
we want to take callers. I know we have one on the line, but we would love to talk to you. If you want to call in, the phone number is 412-SKEPGEN. That's 412-753-7436. Or you can go to tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. That's tiny.cc/SKEPGEN. Our call screener is waiting to talk to you, and we would love to hear from you. Okay, so Alligator Alcatraz, is that it? Is that all that's happened in the last almost 2 months? I'm sure that's all that's happened. Yeah.
No, there's so much. There's so much. All of these all these cuts that are being made that are, scheduled specifically to take effect after the midterms, so that the people who made the cuts don't have to suffer the repercussions or consequences of their actions.
Yeah, I did hear Jim Crow might be coming back.
Might
Is coming back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's, it really does sort of feel that way.
Yeah. So for people who are watching internationally, I know we do have a pretty good, solid international audience. The way the United States is structured, there is a relationship between each individual state and the federal government. So each individual state has their own autonomy to a degree, but they all fold under the federal banner of the United States. That said, there are things that are done at the federal level that affect all states, and there are things that happen at the local level, at the state level. And anytime federal government gets too pushy, the states get real upset about that. And there's this kind of negotiation between the states and the Fed on who has what responsibilities. Usually, if it involves more than one state, it becomes federal. If it's involved in the state, then the state tries to take care of it. When it comes to segregation and the repeal, ending slavery and then trying to address really, really horrible segregation laws in the South, it was originally decided that that should be fixed at the state level. Each state should decide how much they give black people freedom and the ability to have equal
Rights.
accommodation. Yeah, under the law. And so we call those Jim Crow laws. Those were laws that were put in place by the states at the individual state level to remove the rights from Americans. You know, which is fucking crazy. And so in order for Jim Crow laws to be, I'll try. So for Jim Crow laws to be repealed, for that to get fixed, the federal government needed to step in. In fact, in several places, the federal government needed to send the military to enforce the integration of schools and things like that. And so it got taken away, right? It got taken away from the states and it got given to the Fed that that could not be done at the state level. Was it last week or the week before that the laws around that there was a case that was taken to our current Supreme Court, which has done a pretty big job of breaking down what was created for Jim Crow to eliminate Jim Crow, right? That the states cannot sue on behalf of things happening in other places. Basically, you know, what was put in place to stop Jim Crow is now just being rolled back.
Okay. I have to be honest. I didn't actually hear about that particular case.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Because, well, it made me think about this issue where Trump is trying to deport like 8 men in a shipping container to South Sudan. And the Supreme Court ruled that he could do that. And I'm like, so when you were like, oh, we're bringing back Jim Crow, my brain was like, oh, babe, we're bringing back the transatlantic slave trade, honey. Like,
I don't know. Is it so weird to see the like when you're talking about extradition to other countries? How different was it when you saw people getting disappeared without a trial to Poland?
Probably, not to make light of it, I don't know. Did it start as a trickle or was it immediately just every person we can get onto a train? I don't know. Well, it feels like right now it's starting as a trickle a little bit in terms of deporting people to countries they've never been to before, to be housed in, again, like death camps, basically, because you're never going to get out. You were never charged with a crime. You don't get your day in court, so you don't get to get out of prison, right? So, I mean, functionally, if you're going to be in a camp until you die, I feel like we can call that a death camp. And the Supreme Court like letting Trump just ship people away
to wherever, not even where they're from,
wherever. And it's like,
well, I mean,
yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to contend with. And I don't know. I assume it probably felt very similar in that a lot of people were like, I'm just going to mind my business. Be quiet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it's a good thing that like, at least we know that, the U.S. Office of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, only has so much in budget. Like they can only do so much, right? Like that's at least, we're going to keep that nice and small and right?
I mean, I feel like we just kind of gave them a slush fund of like
What do you
$120 billion.
mean? Hold on, 120 million?
Billion with a B.
Billion.
I mean, that's for building a wall ostensibly also, but that's just like grift money, right? Because people get to bid on that and then the wall that they put up doesn't have to stay up. It can fall over in like a windstorm or whatever. So like I feel like the 40 billion for the wall is just sort of like giving money to our pals through a government contract, air quotes.
Yeah.
But yeah, ICE got I don't between 40 and 50 billion more dollars, or 40 and 50 billion dollars in this budget allocated to them. And then there's like another 30 billion or something like that for training and hiring new secret police. Like, I think we need to be a lot more honest in the language that we're using, right? And these people have no identifying markers. They're disappearing people in broad daylight with no authority, no warrant, just because we said so, and we have guns and we have masks, right? So, I mean, it's a gang.
Yeah.
Functionally, like what is the difference? There is none. Right?
Well, I mean, there's someone who disagrees with us, someone who calls in every time that you're here, who I'm sure we can round out this idea in a very thoughtful way together.
Okay.
Yeah. So let's have a third person in on this conversation and see how it goes. Hi, John.
John, Eric, how are you, buddy?
Good. Say hi to Tori.
Hi, Tori, how are you?
Hi, John. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Excellent.
So
enjoying the weather?
Oh, yes. It's lovely here.
Yeah. Oregon is amazing. So John, you're actually calling to defend ICE.
Yes.
Does that sound about right? Okay. So did you hear what we were saying about ICE, by the way, that you have people who are not identifying themselves, who are wearing masks, who are not showing their badges or anything like that, who are showing up and tossing people into unmarked vehicles and disappearing them? Those people that they're disappearing, not being allowed to reach out to friends or family, getting sent out to countries that they're not even from, to be held without a trial for who knows how long. It doesn't need a date.
Well, I didn't know that ICE was identifying themselves, but if that's the way they need to operate, I'm totally for it. You don't announce to the enemy that you're coming.
Well, I mean, legally, I think there's some requirement that you because and John, here's the problem with that, right? Is that like, sure, maybe you don't have to announce that you're a cop before you break someone's door down in the U.S. That is
exactly.
Like that's been argued before, but like, how do I know you're a cop if you're not in a uniform? You don't have a badge. You don't have your name anywhere. You're driving a vehicle that's unmarked, right? It has no license plates. No way of identifying. Like, how do I differentiate that guy from somebody who's just coming into my house to steal my television
or to steal Tori?
Or sure.
I guarantee you, any criminal who's visited by someone, he's not going to respond to a badge. He's going to respond to a gun. That's all that matters. If you have a gun,
John,
he's going to do whatever you tell him.
John, that's a really funny red herring. We're not going to bite. Tori specifically just said, how if they're not identifying themselves, how do you tell the difference between a cop or an ICE agent who you're trying to defend here, and just a regular criminal trying to kidnap you?
You don't.
You don't tell the difference. Okay, so should we live in that world? Should we live in a world where people are just have their houses broken into, being stolen off the streets and thrown into unmarked vehicles, and you don't know if it was the cops or if they're just now a sex slave somewhere?
I should identify themselves when they come in. However, to do
hold on. You just said ICE should identify themselves when they come in, but a minute ago you said you don't reveal yourself to the enemy. So which is it? Did you change your mind? If you did, that's cool. I just want to make sure.
Yeah, let's say I changed my mind.
Cool.
But I defend their actions. You don't let people walk into a house undocumented. You don't let people use your stuff without asking for it. And the people that they're deporting are dangerous criminals who are stealing, killing law-abiding Americans, and are a threat and are dealing drugs. And you have to get them out.
John, when's the last time you've been to the United States?
Trump is getting rid of the cancer. Yes, Mr. Eric.
When's the last time you've been to the United States?
Many years ago.
Okay, you live in Canada. You've been here before, just many years ago.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you know what's going on
on
here?
more than one occasion.
Yeah, so we've lived here our whole lives. I've been all over the United States. I've lived in the South. I've lived on the West Coast. I've spent a lot of time on the East Coast. I've toured and traveled all across the Midwest and the Northern United States, and now I live in the Northwest. I've literally been across this entire country.
Texas?
I lived in Texas for years. So, John, I started my career in Texas. Anyway, John, we're telling you as people who live here that we have not experienced what you're describing. But the amount of confidence you have, it sounds like you've been here. It sounds like you're seeing it yourself. So how do you get this confident?
Because I know the truth.
And we don't. We're here, but we don't know the truth. And you're not here, but you do know the truth.
Because I get my news from the real source. You
Where,
get your news from fake news. I get my news from the real source.
Okay. What is the real source, John?
Fox News, Alex Jones, people like that.
John, I think you've crossed the Poe border, my friend.
The what?
That makes me so sad.
I'm telling you the truth.
I'm sure, buddy. Tori, do you know what a Poe is?
I have no idea.
No, a Poe is somebody who is so out there that you don't know if it's real or not. It's just like, okay, if this is a real person, then maybe it's at the extreme. But and different shows have different like plans for what happens when they come across a Poe. And I generally give people the benefit of the doubt. I want them to, get to a point where, we learn together that, okay, maybe this person's not real. John, I think we crossed that, my friend. You have gone a nice long while giving us great conversations, but it sounds like you revealed yourself. Do you want to come clean?
What do you mean reveal myself? What are you talking about?
I cannot believe that you are not a Poe now. I cannot believe that you are not doing this for fun. I think that this is a character.
What are you talking about? I believe this stuff.
John, to each artist their own. You know what it makes me think of? Did you ever watch Man on the Moon, Tori?
No.
No. There are some comedians who will stick to the bit till the end of time, and I respect it. John,
you want to have a discussion, or
no? Honestly, John, I think that you're fake now, and that makes me really sad because I don't think we can have that anymore. But
so you're banning me? Is that it?
I wish you the best.
You're canceling me.
Yes. Oh, that makes me sad. I don't think somebody can here's the thing is if you get your news from Fox and from Alex Jones and all of that shit, I think you'd have a different way of saying it. I think John described him having the real news, us having the fake news, but then not being able to describe with any clarity what his news source is. He just said Fox and Alex Jones. When if you were in that, you'd talk about OAN or you'd talk about the different people who've been actually involved instead of what was a talking point 4 years ago. That feels like the way a leftist would describe someone who's a conspiracy theorist. You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah. Hmm.
Like I can't believe that John is not a Poe. So that makes me sad. John, if you are for real, I want you to know that what you are saying is so wild that you have convinced me that you are fake and that you are playing a character, because that is just how fucking F's in chat to pay respects, you guys. All right. I thought we were going to get more from. I'm sorry, Tori.
It's okay. Like the description of like, the description in the like call screener of like wants to defend the deportation of immigrants like doing crimes or something that John had originally shared. I was like, oh, this is really interesting, right? Because they're deporting people who aren't committing any crimes. For one, I mean, they're deporting U.S. citizens. Like, so clearly they don't care if you're doing a crime or not. They're just trying to get rid of people. And I was excited to get to explain that to John. To be honest, I thought it would be really helpful for him to understand that they're so sloppy that they are deporting U.S. citizens who are children, who are here legally, checking in, going to their immigration hearings, obeying the law, like being in the country. And that's the thing is like, this is what I really wanted to explain to John, because I think that for people who are outside of the United States, it probably is a lot less clear based on the behavior of this administration that being in the country without documentation, or without a visa or, your paperwork in order isn't a criminal offense. It's a civil offense. Like speeding in your car, like getting a parking ticket, right? We don't throw people out of the country. We don't ship them to the other side of the planet for parking tickets.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
And so this is just dehumanization, right? It's just being cruel for the sake of cruelty. And I think Trump doesn't actually really care about immigration policy one way or the other. I think he's just trying to enrich himself and like some of his pals. And this just happens to be like the icing on the cake for a couple of, ideologues who happen to be close to him, who are like, oh, this is the perfect guy who will sign like a blank check to our entire, Christian nationalist agenda. But I'm very sad that I didn't get to tell all of that to John. So RIP.
I'm still
that
glad.
Dream.
I'm still glad you're saying all of it. I want you to have the opportunity. I'm sorry that that ended so quickly.
Yeah. That's a bummer.
We do have more people though who've called in, and so I would love to hop into the next. We have our friend in Costa Rica, who's the geopolitical analyst, who I think would be really fun to talk to. Ditzo in Costa Rica, you're live on the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. Pura vida.
Hey, ¿cómo está,
amigo?
Hello.
De aquí, ¿cómo está usted?
Más o menos. Cansado pero contento, amigo. Cansado pero contento.
Tan tranquilo como la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
So, what's going on, brother?
Well, I was just listening to the conversation a little bit on this. Tori, nice to meet you.
Hi.
Have you not met yet?
No, we have not.
Oh, Ditzo, Tori, Ditzo. I'm going to get you in the lower third. You guys talk.
Yeah. So I just wanted to call in. Well, first thing, in regards of this whole mess of the United States and the neo-gringo concentration camps with the alligator thingy. Well, it's nothing too amazing. The United States for the past 125 years, if not more, have gone to do this type of things occasionally. So let's be honest on that. And I don't know if you guys read what happened in Mexico July 4th, just a couple days ago.
No, what happened?
In regards to the subject. Look it up. A series of protests in Mexico DF against United States tourism. there is a growing sentiment in America that is resenting the U.S. And its citizens
Yeah.
for this migration blunder. Um, to There are different levels, but most of us, and I will include myself into that, uh, we are honestly saying we don't want any more U.S. Um, migrants, nor do we want any more U.S. citizen tourism, even if that hurts us economically to a degree. So that sentiment is growing slowly there, it's present. So we're saying, look, the way you treat the migrants, it's the same way your people are going to be treated when they exit the United States.
Oh God.
They're going to be treated as criminals, as potential, spies, negative foreign influence, yada 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 yada. Of course, it's not ideal. I don't like that, but that is what is brewing in many ways.
Hmm. Hmm.
Honestly, I'm in support of it. I think that I am in a country that's doing some really fucked up stuff, and I feel like that needs to have real world consequences.
Yeah.
And if there are not real world consequences, then all we are doing is sheltering bad people from the consequences of their actions, which only encourages them to do more bad things. So if the United States is going to truly damage its relationships, then seeing those countries reflect that and go, hey, this is now a damaged relationship, that makes sense to me.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys looked into what happened within Mercosur, the meeting that just happened a couple of days ago. Um, a lot of us in the civil organization has proposed to our government that we want legislative change and start charging visa for the travelers of the United States. So we want to degrade the U.S. passport. And like you charge us visa to enter your country, we want reciprocal, and we want to charge visa to the U.S. traveler.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Mexico should absolutely do that. I mean, Mexico should be taking advantage of the US to the fullest extent possible, right? There are a lot of Americans who have moved to Mexico, like kind of especially I think since Trump was elected into office the first time. You know, I I personally would love to live in Mexico, but it really is unfair if like we get to just come and go as we please and then Mexican people are hunted for sport essentially in the US because ICE is bored and has nothing to do, right? And so I think, yeah, if Mexico needs to make changes in order to make it a more equitable relationship and in order to kind of demean the United States, I think that's probably the right thing to do because, we've been the bully and the aggressor for so long and it's just really becoming kind of untenable or like kind of hitting that point for a lot of people now. Because we always played like we were calm, cool, and collected before, and now it's like, as we say in the States, the mask is off. So
I don't know if you guys are aware, but do you know how many migrants outside the United States currently there are around the world?
Oh, do you mean like U.S. expats?
The so-called I mean, every migrant is an expat. So, I mean, technically speaking, the term being applied only to U.S. People who go out is absurd. I mean, somebody who goes to
it
the
is.
United States from somebody else is also an expat. But anyhow, yes.
Yeah, no, we call ourselves expats and everybody else is an immigrant. It's very weird. But no, I don't actually know the number. Do you know it?
Yes, 8 million people, upwards between 8 to 10 million people, U.S. citizens who live abroad, and this is across the globe, in between Europe, Latin America, Caribbean, Asia, etc. But
Hmm.
for example, in Mexico, out of the population of migrants in Mexico, U.S. citizenship is one of the highest. It cannibalizes into 26 to 30% of that migration.
Whoa, I did not know it was that high
Mhm.
in Mexico. I guess I would have thought it would be a little bit higher globally, but Americans are also, we're weird and we think we're better than everyone else. So people who actually get brave enough to leave are a little less common, maybe. And because we think we're brainwashed, we're from childhood to be taught that like the US is the best country ever. And so a lot of people don't have much interest in visiting other places and certainly not living other places. I did not know that it was so high in Mexico. That is really, I mean, my plan was after my kids graduated from high school to move to Mexico City. Um, and so we've been like looking into how to do that. I understand now that it's like, oh, that's probably not a thing most Mexican people are very excited about. It's like having me move down there, which is valid, right? Because like we're kind of the worst.
Tori, may I ask you, if it's not too personal, what is your heritage background?
On my dad's side, my dad is black. My mom is Spanish, Mexican, and German, but have been in the States for many, many generations. I think my great grandfather was born in Mexico, was the last person in our family who was born on the Mexican side of the border. So, yeah.
In my case, I'm Afro-Indigenous. I am
Okay.
a mixture of the African descendants of slavery in Costa Rica, as well
Yeah.
as one of the tribes, 8 tribes of Native Americans here in Central America, the Bribiri. Um, so I get that. What's interesting in this sense, and the reason I asked and I share in mind, I think that United States, their concepts of identity are so skewed that they're like they're using of the imperial metric system, outdated and stubborn. But
Uh-huh.
they confuse race, a concept like a race that's outdated and completely out the door,
Yep.
and they confuse that with ethnicity. They don't
Mm-hmm.
have a clue what ethnicity stands for. Many of them.
Yeah, I would agree
I
with
don't know
that.
what you think of that.
Absolutely. It's so hard to have conversations with people because, like the average, I think, white person in the US is like, oh, where are you from? You look different, right? But then it's like, yeah, the understanding of the difference between like race, which is not biologically real, and then ethnicity, and then nationality on top of that, Americans really struggle with. That's not something most people get taught or have explained to them at any point in their education. So there's a lot of ignorance here.
And what's your, in the matters of this migration and the irregular migration and undocumented migration that has happened, would you agree that this problem has been carried on for at least 40 years, and that in the last 4 or 5 administrations, even if we go back 6 administrations to the Reagan administration, this bipartisan lack of understanding what are the differences between illegal, or what is badly called illegal and legal migration, and what would your take would be in that sense? How can inside your country take back this conversation and say, we fucked up. A lot of our stuff we did has aggravated those conditions of displacement of people,
Mm-hmm.
and we need to, I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining what I want to ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Eric, do you have thoughts?
I have lots of thoughts.
I do too. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think it goes way further back. Dito.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I know that I've talked about my grandpa's side, who came from Guadalajara when he was a kid, right? My grandpa was the first on that side of my family to come to the United States from Mexico. My grandma, I think I've told you before, was Tejano.
Mm-hmm.
And they moved out west when Americans were coming. out towards Texas, and so my grandma and that side of the family saw the United States settle and California get brought into the the country into the United States. When my grandma was born, it was not too many years after the Zoot Suit riots, which was a series of riots in Los Angeles between the police and the Mexican population. You have historically seen the United States absolutely shit on Mexico from the very beginning of this country. Going back to the Mexican-American War. And then as you see this country in its current shape, I think that we forget that there are so many shitty things that have happened to Mexicans because of this country, that we forget that that's the source of pejoratives, right? Wetback is a term that comes from Operation Wetback, which was a wild deportation policy that would just round up Mexicans and send them over to Mexico. Like, it was brutal. I think that I grew up in a community. I grew up in a farming community in Southern California. A lot of my teachers actually were really active with and around Cesar Chavez and the migrant workers' rights, because that was a big part of the area that I grew up in. And so seeing that, I don't think it just goes back 20, 30 years. I think it goes back to the 70s. It goes back to the 40s. It goes back to the 1800s. I think it's criminal that we don't teach young Americans the history of the country that they are inheriting, because without that, I don't know, I feel like we're going to keep having this conversation where we're like, oh yeah, it's only gotten bad in the last 20 years. It's never been good.
If I may intercede real quickly with that,
Yeah.
I think it's also teaching about that Americanness is not exclusive to the United States, that the U.S. person who borns in the U.S. is just a country within America, and that Americanness is far more expansive.
Oh,
that
yeah.
could begin that could open the door in that sense.
Well, and even then, I would love to see a future where we change that. I mean, America is a term that comes from colonizers. Fuck that.
Correct. Yeah, we agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't learn till I was an adult, right? Because I have, like deep Mexican roots on that half of my family. And I knew that I have a great grandparent who comes from a really, really like indigenous Aztec culture, and Aztec is not even a term. The Aztec is a term that comes from the United States. I didn't know
exactly.
that.
Mexica, Nahuatl, in that sense. And in fact, people don't realize that, for example, Nahuatl includes several indigenous groups, not only on Mexico, but throughout Honduras, Salvador, and partly Guatemala. For example, my people speak Chicha languages, which is languages that derived in the southern section, especially Colombia, partly Venezuela, somewhat in relation with the Andino section, or the what badly called Incas, and then Panama, Costa Rica. So yeah, that other whole conversation is a whole thing.
I do really quickly. I was corrected in the live chat, and I want to make sure that I shout out this correction. Operation Wetback came after it was a slur, which just makes it way worse. I was wrong. I was mistaught. It's worse. So, Dito, you had a question for us. What's up?
Yeah. If quick question. If I make the statement that the difference between badly called legal and illegal migration is an economic one, how would you approach that?
I
I think that's completely fucking accurate, to be honest, because it's like if you can afford to come here legally, you just do that. But the people I've talked to who have had to do all of the paperwork and get an attorney and went to all of their court dates and did everything right, air quotes, it's like $30,000-$40,000, which I'm sorry, like most people just don't have. Most people in the US don't have that, So I would say that like that's really the dividing line is we've made it incredibly difficult on purpose to immigrate here legally.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I could talk about how, like, ideologically, I think that's ass backwards, but no, yeah, you yeah, I think you nailed it.
So let me tell you something about and this way Tori can understand me a little bit more. I was born in Costa Rica, and I was adopted. My biological mother had to give me away. As soon as I was adopted by another Costa Rican woman from Costa Rica and a Venezuelan father. From the age of 0 to the age of 16, my life was the life of a migrant. I had, by that time, lived in 7 different countries here in the Western Hemisphere. That would be Argentina, Mexico, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Colombia, and Ecuador.
That's amazing.
So for me, my reality as someone who in the formative years grew up knowing that every 4 years I would have to change a country, leave friends, because my father worked in the diplomacy. My father was the ambassador in the 90s of Venezuela to the OEA, so the Organization of American States, radicated in Washington, D.C. So for me, migration is not only cultural heritage, but it's also a psyche reality. I learned to be a migrant. I grew up being a migrant, moving place to place to place.
So,
go ahead.
honestly, I think that I wanted to actually touch on that, and I lost my train of thought, and I'm really, really glad that you bring that up. When it comes to migrants, we're not just talking about people who are trying to become U.S. citizens. There are also migrant populations. So, what was it that pushed your family to move? Was it work opportunities or?
Yeah, my father was an ambassador. He worked and was appointed by different governments in Venezuela, the Carlos Andres Perez and so forward, as an ambassador to represent Venezuela in different nations. So that is what motivated our moving, because an ambassador usually has a lifespan of 4 years, 4 to 6 years, depending on what the constitutional presidency is in each country. So something you learn is that you're there for a few years and then you're out, new appointment type of thing.
That makes sense. Okay. So I'm definitely going to be bringing a different perspective then from it. Before I got involved in YouTube, I worked in schools, and one of the things that I did for years after graduating high school is I ran after school programs for free in my community. It was actually funded through Arnold Schwarzenegger, believe it or not, which was amazing. But just due to the community that we were in, a lot of the kids we took care of were migrant kids. I don't know how my community would have functioned. I don't know how the crops would have been picked. I don't know how it would have continued going if it wasn't for that population. And we're not even paying attention to that. is this a uniquely United States thing? Like, is it normal for other countries to absolutely think that they're getting invaded by, some other, like,
Oh yeah.
how normal is this?
Look,
Like, I know that Germany
it's
does
very
that with
normal.
Poland.
And I'm going to give you an example on South
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
With the exodus of Venezuelans, of my people in Venezuela, from the beginning of the Chavez Maduro regime up to today, 6 to 8 million Venezuelans have exodus. 85% of those have migrated to nearby countries like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, etc.
Okay.
And you see that hate towards the Venezuelan who's migrating because of the political condition in the country, and it's something that you have to fight against in many ways. So internally, xenophobia between nations is as common as drinking water.
Okay.
But in the condition of the United States, it's aggravated because the United States having a made up identity of Americanness, and I echo that, it also adds into the complete and utter misunderstanding of, and I'll give this example. In the last 60 years, United States population has grown from 150 million to 350 million people. One of the major contributing factors to that population growth was migration.
Mm-hmm.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
But also understanding that Latin America in 33 nations currently doubles the population of the United States, 660 million, and that that migration within Latin America, within this continent, is marked by three major factors. One, the political, economic, and social upheavals that have been ongoing for more focus after the Second World War. Two, the influence of foreign policy of the United States and how it aggravates the conditions of that instability within the particular nations, making things worse. Therefore, creating worsened conditions that displace people in conditions of that we should say constant and systematic war, and then that fuels the migration towards the United States. Mm-hmm. So in the last 60 years, this particular aspect has been the driving force as to why we have a more displacement of people and then undocumented and irregular migration. And just to conclude, when I mentioned that the difference between so badly called legal or illegal migration is an economic one, is because at the end and at the core of this whole issue, there's that economic driver. And people want to find good jobs to feed their families. That's the bottom line.
That feels like a really flowery view of it. I don't know. It's all like, you could say, sure, their goal is to feed their families, or you could also say that the focus is on money, not on taking care of people who need to be taken care of, right? Not on helping human beings, right? We're not shaping our immigration policy around, taking care of people who are fleeing a scary situation. We're not shaping our immigration policy around. I don't know. It's not around bettering humanity. It's around making money. It's around making a quick buck. It's around bringing people who are going to bring more money in. I feel like
the argument wasn't that, like, that's what's shaping it, but that's what's driving people's movements. Like the movement pattern is like people are ultimately driven by trying to take care of their families. Our immigration policy is Reagan was kind of an outlier, I feel like, because he was pretty pro-immigration. He saw that as like a net good for the economy in a way that subsequent Republican presidents have been much less kind of on board with. I feel like that was kind of strange for him, that he was like, we want more African immigration. We want more people immigrating here from Asia. And like that, we have these weird, like ethno-nationalist weirdos running the country now. It sounds completely foreign. But yeah, no, I feel like the argument being made was that what's driving the patterns of migration, not what's driving the US's immigration policy, because our immigration policy is fucked.
Well,
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously, in this sense, when I establish as one of the major factors and the bottom line of migration is an economic one, it also drives into the opportunity to migrate as well as the reason to migrate. One of the reasons to migrate is fundamentally economic. So if you have the opportunity to migrate, hell, if you're moving from one country to another because of a job opportunity or any let's say any official capacity of moving, that moving represents an economic cost because when you arrive to the new country, you have to pay for a home, you have to pay for the utilities. If you have children, you have to pay for their schools, you have to pay for the food, etc., 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 etc.
Sure.
Not added into the problems of social adaptation, trying to adapt into the new culture you're arriving to, and the other sociological phenomena that accompanies that. But in the other hand, undocumented, so badly called illegal migration, is responding to the internal social, economic, and political crises that are happening that are aggravated and made worse by United States foreign policies that then drive those people to mobilize even if they don't have the economic means to do so, and having to then involve themselves with the traffickers, the cartels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then people are saying, look, I'm moving because I want better opportunity to live in peace, to at least have a means to progress as my family or myself, etc., in that sense. So in very short and concise way, when I hear the U.S. talking about migration, it's like hearing a donkey neigh because they saw a fly, not understanding that it's just a fly.
It's I really appreciate the context that you bring. I do. I think I think you can compare the United States to a donkey in a lot of ways, but this works. This works. And I feel like, if anybody's watching is going, wow, Eric's really hating on the United States. It's called tough love.
No, I'm
if
not.
you love somebody, you should be able to say when they're fucking up.
It's called consequences.
Yeah. If my brother was being a piece of shit, I would sit him down and say, I love you and you're a piece of shit. So why would I not do that to my country? I think that's really fair. Are you seeing
don't get me started. When I can, if we ever talk about Latin American reality and you get me on your show, trust me, the tough love is even 10 times harder when I'm speaking about my realities in Costa Rica or the realities in Venezuela or Argentina, etc.
Well, you don't even need to go further. I mean, just go to Panama. Like, I know that what they're experiencing right now because of United States policies is fucking crazy. So no, I'd be happy to have that conversation. I know that we could probably talk to you all day, but
yeah. You have other people.
Tori, is there anything else that you talk to Dietzel about while we have him here?
I just wanted to say thanks, actually, because I feel like this conversation was amazing, and I really appreciate the perspective that you bring, and Americans really need to hear a lot more often from people in Latin America about where we actually belong and like the impact that our our actions, our behaviors as individuals, and our behavior as like a nation state have on other people's lives and livelihoods. So, Ditsa, I really, really appreciate you calling in today.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like a really great. You're not that special, and
Yeah.
I feel like I needed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, take
Look,
care. Buddy.
thank you so much for having me. Thank you for having this initial conversation. And I think I have you on my Discord. I want to see if I can send you a message because I really want to start contributing to Skeptic Generation. And you have a resident Latin American expert in regards of this, of realities, etc. And for anybody out there who's thinking that everything I converse is because I hate United States, wake up. This isn't about hate. This is about analyzing beyond the limitations you have within your country, in every sense of the word. I'm not Republican. I'm not Democrat. I never voted in your country. So my allegiance is not towards a nation. It's towards Western Hemisphere and our history and our legacy, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And understanding that, you'll understand that I am a Pan American at heart.
So, sending you the biggest hug. You take care of yourself.
I love that so much.
Thank you. And yeah, reach out, definitely. Supporting SkepGen. This is a good opportunity to bring that up. I didn't charge patrons last month.
Oh.
I made a massive mistake, and I am really, really trying to figure out how to make sure this show happens for the next month. So yeah, no, reach out to me on Discord. That would be a huge help. I fucked up. Dito, thank you for calling in.
Pura vida, Beshko Woglaba, which means walk with your eyes open in the Privi language.
I love that. I love that. Mucho gusto. Catch you later.
Mucho gusto. Pura vida.
Yeah, if people want to support the show, let me just roll into that. Consider becoming a patron. Every once in a while, I'll remember to charge patrons, which can help keep this show funded, which is amazing. Patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. That's patreon.com/Skeptic Generation. I believe I also have Buy Me a Coffee and other ways to support. There are other ways to support the show. I really need to figure out a more consistent way because, like, that was a bummer. But what did you think of Ditso? I didn't know this was your first conversation with him.
Yeah, that was amazing. And I was very grateful that I was able to kind of just follow along and listen. It's something I think about a lot as an American who has like a little bit of Mexican ancestry that I'm like, I would like to live in Mexico someday for the rest of my life. And hearing like Mexican people being like, yeah, fuck all of you feels very validating actually. Cause I'm like, yeah, actually we're not doing a great job. We're a bad neighbor, let's say. Right.
Oh, very much so.
The HOA wants to kick us out, and I feel like that is valid based on our behavior.
Yeah. I don't know. I appreciate it. It gives me a lot to think about, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, you know, so racism, xenophobia, and you know, seeing yourself as superior to your neighbors and fighting over borders. It's not just a United States thing. Heck, I remember shit. It reminds me, actually, I'm going to tell a story. I'm sorry. It'll be quick, I promise. But my grandpa just recently passed, and it's got me thinking about my family. My grandparents lived in a really, really, really ghetto area. It was the kind of place where my stepdad's car got stolen out of the parking lot twice when we were visiting my grandparents. It was called the Captain's Gig, was the name of the apartment complex. It was brutal. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. But my grandparents made the best of it. It was where I felt safe. It was where I felt loved. And my grandpa,
I love that.
yeah, my grandpa did his best to secure them that home, and he made a deal with the person who owned the building. My grandpa kind of became the super. He was the one who took care of the grounds. He did all the work, and he fixed people's apartments and yada yada yada. And my grandma just adopted people. And I remember there was a Guatemalan couple. You better believe there were people that were living there that were not documented immigrants,
Yeah.
and they were
Yeah.
doing their absolute best, people piling into apartments just so that they can have somewhere to be. And I remember my grandma finding this young woman who left with her husband from Guatemala and moved into an apartment in this little building. And even the other Mexicans weren't nice to her because they were Guatemalan and they didn't understand it. Yeah, my grandma actually caught her looking around to like scavenge plants to cook. And my grandma brought her in and made sure that their home was fed, which was the kind of people that they were. It feels really like when you talk about it from this like 30,000 foot level, you don't see the people,
Yeah.
But I miss you, Grandma. I miss you, Grandpa. They were great people. All right. So I know that there was a caller, someone who called back that you want to talk to. So I'm going to pull myself out of it because I know you want to talk to John. So I'm going to give you full reign. You can pull John in.
Oh God, I'm not ready. Okay, go ahead.
I am going to sit back and give you the chance to have the conversation you want to have.
Hi, John. Thanks for calling back. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm right here.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
Okay. Sorry, I couldn't hear you for a second. Hello.
Yeah, so I guess it's just you and me.
I guess so. But I wanted to
Okay.
share a little bit about, what our laws actually are in the United States and why it's a big deal that they're not being followed by the government, if that makes sense. But, you were kind of sharing that you feel like there's a lot of crime and drugs that are happening here. Was there a reason that you felt that way? Or is it just that's what you've been hearing?
Am I wrong about that?
Our crime is actually way, way down. It's sort of weird. I just saw some crime stats from the US for, I guess it was last year, and everyone was kind of like, wow, these are sort of the lowest they've been in many decades. Obviously people still, abuse drugs and do crime and things like that. But in terms of if you're looking at the trends, we're actually in a pretty good spot. So yeah, that's what's going on right now.
So tell me, I really want to know why are you in favor of the migrant staying, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, there's actually quite a lot of reasons. I think from an economic standpoint, since that's sort of what drives a lot of these conversations, migrants pay many, many billions of dollars in taxes, much more than corporations like Netflix or Amazon or Walmart pay, right? So there is a way in which, from an economic standpoint, we really actually need migrant workers, immigration into our country, because our tax system is set up so that we don't tax billionaires enough, and we tax corporations basically nothing, a lot of the big corporations. So that's the economic standpoint. I think from just an ethical standpoint and, trying to be a good neighbor, that the US does a lot of meddling in other people's countries, and, we get really involved in their economic policies. I'm sure you know this. We train people to assassinate leaders of other countries. And so, when we disturb like the economic equilibrium of another nation, especially in like Central and South America, I think we have a moral obligation when we make it so that those people have no jobs, that they should be able to come here and get jobs, because we are the ones who screwed that up. So that just seems fair, right? So that's why, for me personally, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but those are kind of the economic reason and the ethical reason for me that I think migrants should be able to come here and contribute, because they do. They contribute more than Amazon and Netflix.
Okay, well, I believe that the United States is a land of opportunity, home of immigrants. Immigrants are welcome. Says right there on the Statue of Liberty. But you would agree with me that before you enter a country, you have to go through the proper channels. You have to come in, show your papers, be vaccinated, be asked what your intentions are, what your history is, and then study the history, take the test, and become an American citizen. Don't you agree? That's how it should be done?
I mean, I don't think that I don't know that people have to become an American citizen or take a test or anything. I think you can still be a good, hardworking person who loves your kids and takes care of your community without being a citizen. I don't think that you need paperwork to prove that you're, a good person who contributes to society. Is that your question, or am I misunderstanding what you're asking?
What I'm saying is this: to become an American citizen, you have to go through the process. For instance, you have to. Well, I don't know the exact process, but I'm assuming that you have to study American history, and then you have to take the test, and then you have the swearing-in ceremony, right?
Yeah. So I think that we're kind of making two sort of separate arguments. Yes, there is a process to become an American citizen. I don't think that everybody who lives here needs to be an American citizen if that's not something they want. Does that make sense?
But I don't understand. How can you want to be in the United States and benefit from her resources and not want to be a citizen? How does that make sense?
I mean, a lot of people move here for, a job opportunity, but they don't plan on staying here. Maybe they have kids or grandkids back home. Like, there's lots of reasons that you wouldn't necessarily want to be a citizen. I don't think that's, I think that's kind of neither here nor there, in terms of, people coming here. Like, sure, you can go through that process. It's like, John, I don't know if you're married or not, but it's kind of like choosing to start a family with someone, like being married or not being married. Like, maybe you decide, like, that's not something we need. We don't have to make it official. That doesn't mean that your relationship doesn't have value. To me, citizenship is just a piece of paper. It doesn't actually prove anything about whether or not you're a good person or you're going to, contribute meaningfully to your family, your community, the tax base, whatever the situation is. So I think that we have different goals. I think you want people to become citizens, and I just want people to contribute however that works for them.
But what you're saying is the equivalent of this. It's like someone coming to your house, like, all right, Tori, I want to come into your house. I want to sit down, eat your food, watch your TV, and then when I'm done, I get to go home. I get to go home, and you're left with nothing. Like,
I mean, that's what friends are, though. I have people come over to my house. Eric comes over to my house all the time, and sits down and drinks my drinks, and we hang out and play games, and then Eric goes home. So yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. I don't personally feel like there's anything wrong with that. I know not everybody agrees.
Well, I guess I will
to make it more personal. Let's say someone comes over to your house, they do that, and you treat this person better than you treat your own kids. It's the same thing. Migrants come in, they sit down, they plant themselves, and they get more stuff than American citizens.
That's a myth. That's not true.
It's not? I think
No. If you look at the data, that's very much not true at all. Most resources are not available to immigrant people, and there's not even a way for them to scam most of the systems, honestly. So it's not like they can even steal if they wanted to. There's just no access if you are not documented to services here in the United States. I mean, they can drive the roads and stuff.
What about the apparent danger? If you just let anyone just literally walk in, what's to prevent a rapist or a murderer or a drug dealer from coming in?
Yeah, they do, but American citizens, people who are born in this country, are more likely to commit crime, those kinds of crimes especially, because immigrants know that they will be removed immediately if they are, found guilty of a crime like that, right? What was that?
Isn't that what Trump is doing?
No, he's taking people who are trying to do things the right way, people who are paying taxes, taking their kids to school, showing up for their jobs every day. He's not focusing on criminals at all. He's focusing on whoever's just the easiest to catch. And unfortunately, that oftentimes is just moms and kids. So no, that's not what he's doing right now. That's what he said he would do, and he is not doing it.
I really need to ask this question. I don't want to take this as racist, but would you be saying this? Would you be saying the same thing if it was white people that were being rounded up?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's sort of what we're actually taught, is like the standard is that it's actually, we can see that it's wrong in America. We can see something is really wrong when it happens to white people, right? And I do think that's really interesting, John, that you bring that up, because like Australian people who overstay their visas and are here illegally are not the ones who are getting rounded up and deported. It's brown people, right? It's Mexican people and Haitian people and Guatemalan people who are being deported. And there's no huge roundup of, however many tens of thousands of Australian people and Irish people and British people who are here who've overstayed their visas. They're not getting rounded up by ICE. So I think the racial piece is actually really important.
About that? Are you 100% certain? Are you 100% certain about that?
Yeah, you can look at the data. They report like, when they have, I don't know about now, but up until now, they've reported the data of like where people are from. If you are detained by ICE, they would have to do some due diligence, before January, I guess, on, where the person was from and where they should be deported back to, like their nationality was part of the due process, I guess, of overstaying your visa. And so, yeah, you can look at the data, and we know how many people, for example, how many people come here from Australia. We count that, right? And so then we can look and see approximately how many people are here who have stayed longer than their visa allowed.
Well, I heard your conversation earlier with John from Costa Rica, and you're saying that, well, I know this for a fact that in Mexico, they're saying things like either learn Spanish, pay pesos, or you're out, or don't come here. And they're saying this to Americans.
I mean, I've spent a fair amount of time in Mexico. I've never experienced that ever. Has that been your experience in Mexico, John?
No.
That they're like, speak Spanish or get out?
I've never been to Mexico, so I can't attest to that personally.
You should go at some point. I think that you would have a great experience. Just, be polite, but I don't think anybody's going to tell you like speak Spanish or get out of here, right? I doubt that would be your experience.
Isn't that what that gentleman from Costa Rica said? Isn't that what he said?
I think he was saying that they don't want the imbalance, right? So Americans can kind of just go to Mexico and sort of hang out there, right? And we don't allow that. If you are a Mexican citizen and you come to the United States, you don't just get to like chill here and work and like not, so he's just saying that he thinks the standard should be the same, that Americans going into Mexico should be treated the same way as Mexicans coming to America. Which I think you would think is fair, right? That we should just treat everybody the same coming and going?
Well, United States, Canada, and Mexico, I think the term is that we're the three amigos, we're trading partners. We should be getting along, because after all...
I agree. Totally. We should.
Yeah, it should be Trump, Carney, and whoever the president of Mexico is.
Scheinbaum? Is that who's the president right now?
Not sure.
Hold on, let me check.
So,
but anyway, but I heard you and Eric saying that you're not being good neighbors to Mexico or us to Canada. But amazing question: do you have a problem with living in the United States?
No, I mean, I happen to live somewhere that's really beautiful, so I personally can't complain. I think I live in one of the most beautiful places on planet Earth. So, I mean, I guess as far as that goes, like...
Yeah, and I live in the same city, so...
Yeah, so, like, we're happy, but...
Claudia Sheinbaum Pardo.
Okay.
That's the name of the Mexican president. Pardo.
Yeah, we don't even know. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Tori, how you feeling?
Okay. Claudia Scheinbaum Pardo. I did not. Okay. Cool. Thanks, John.
Okay. Yeah, but tell me, as American citizens, I have two questions. A, what do you think is the biggest complaint about the United States? And B, would you like to live anywhere else?
Do you mean biggest complaint by Americans or biggest complaint by people outside of the U.S.?
By Americans, because I don't live in the United States. So I'm asking you because you are Americans.
Oof. I mean, right now, I don't know. I feel like we're pretty divided on our complaints. So I'm not really sure. Well, let's see here. I think obeying the Constitution is probably the biggest complaint, that like the Trump administration is not abiding by the laws of the country in many, many ways, and he's being given passes. So I think that might be the biggest complaint right now, because even conservative people think that Trump should obey the laws that exist currently. And if he wants them to be different, he should change them instead of just breaking them. So that's my guess. I don't know.
Let me guess. The deportations is unconstitutional, right?
No, there's due process. You have a constitutional right to due process whether or not you're an American citizen, and that's the part that he's not doing. So it's not that he can't deport people. He can deport people, but they get their day in court first.
Well, if they're not American citizens, they're not entitled to due process.
Do you know what due process is?
It's in the Constitution. You do get due process whether or not you are a citizen.
I'll have to look that up. And you do agree that you do live in the greatest nation on earth.
I mean, most powerful nation on earth, probably.
Well, you just finished studying the Constitution. What other country has a Constitution?
Every country, John.
Yeah, but yours has the best.
I mean, I think that's relative, but okay, sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, Tori, it was nice speaking to you. But another time I'll call in. We'll talk about something else. I'll like to talk to you about capitalism versus socialism, but we won't talk about that today.
Sure, another time. That sounds great, John. Thank you.
All right. Have a good day.
You too.
That was a good call.
Okay, I was like, oh God, is Eric mad at me? Am I doing this wrong?
No.
It's my insecurity. It's not you at all. It's me projecting.
I feel I should put this out there though, just in case anybody is wondering. Like, yes, this is the show that I run. This is technically my show, but also you are my peer. And when we're doing this together, we should do it as peers without a weird power dynamic that's also layered on top of it.
Sure.
You know
that's
what I mean?
fine.
So like with that said, if you want to go in a direction, I want to go with you. Like that's all there is to it. And I really liked listening to you too. And it made me want to jump in and say other things. But I'm going to need to wrestle with whether or not I think John is a Poe.
Okay, that's fine.
I think that that's a personal thing for me. And for people who are watching going, why are you giving this person time? Again, Tori, you had the point that I keep making, that I stand behind, right? We need a reason to have these conversations, and we need an outlet for that. And without that outlet, these conversations aren't going to happen. Mm-hmm. So what you did was in the spirit of the show, much more than I was giving it. So I appreciate it. That drags me back. All right. We have Atheo-Pagan on the line in New York, who wants to talk about politics in New York.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So there's some mayoral stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something about Turkey. Hey, Atheo-Pagan.
Yeah. Hey. I heard a lot of Western Coast pride earlier, and that needs to stop. Northeast for the win, always. Most beautiful place in the world.
Yeah, that's why we needed to get rid of V on the show. V's from Pennsylvania, and we couldn't have that.
No. Anyway, so how are you two today? With all of those wonderful calls you just had. Very, very zen. Very nice.
I'm just vibing. Anytime I've got like I get to hang out with my friend Tori right now, and that makes it a good day. Yeah. So, and then you're calling in, which makes it a better day.
Indeed.
What's on your mind? What's going on?
So, recently there was some good news out of New York. Because we decided to vote in a Democratic Socialist as our primary contestant for mayor of New York City.
And that was the end of New York.
Yes, we are now a Muslim. We are now a Sharia law communist nation state.
Oh my gosh!
So honestly,
oh my god, Ethiopia! Did you see all the did you see the tweet about how New York is now under trans Sharia law?
Yeah. It's the amount of it's interesting to see fascists who have no real coalescence of ideology try to make it so that the left has the same thing. It's a wild watch.
So it's not just like I'm contextualizing that with the fact that I have family that don't want to visit me in Portland because they think that Portland is a bombed out, drug infested, sanctuary city, terrifying place. And they won't even come here to say that that's not the case. And I don't think that
there's people that say the same thing about New York.
Yeah, I don't think that they are malicious. I think that they just built their worldview on what was told to them by their media. You know what I mean? So I don't want to paint my family with that brush.
Yeah.
But that said, so Mamdani, what's going on?
So there's an interesting thing going on right now in New York. So we have ranked choice voting here. So we didn't actually think Mamdani was going to win in the first round of voting. We thought that it would at least have to go into the second round of voting between him and Cuomo.
Excuse you.
And sorry about that. I had a little vomit came up. So basically what we thought was going to happen, because we actually would have three mayoral candidates in the general election. It would be whoever won the Democratic nomination versus Adams, who was a Democrat, but after his little affair with Trump, decided to run as an independent, and a nutcase Republican by the name of Silva. I always get it mixed up. But now that Cuomo actually decided to bow out night one, and that's why Mamdani won without having even to really go into round two of voting. And now Cuomo is running also as an independent, and he's trying to band together all of the centrist Democrats to vote for him, and also split the vote with the independent ex-Democrat Adams, and have Silva as well running as a Republican. So it's just incredible, because now what we're watching is that the Democratic Party is turning their back on Mamdani completely. I other than AOC and Bernie Sanders, I have heard almost no support for Mamdani from the left wing or the Democratic Party. Schumer is going ballistic that this is happening. Other Democratic, Gillibrand, who's also our senator, is putting out Islamophobic stuff about Mamdani, saying he's an anti-Semite, blah 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 blah. All this stuff, even though that Mamdani's number one supporter during the race was another governor candidate who was running with him, who is Jewish. That was also amazing to see. There's so much amazing stuff that came out of this race. I think this particular race is going to be studied by political scientists for a long time.
I think this generation is going to be studied by political scientists for a long time. Just in general. But I have a question for you, because you saying these things, I feel like I'm building this budding conspiracy theory in the back of my head, and I run a skeptic show. I should probably get called out on this. So help me here, both of you. It feels to me when I hear that a socialist is running, when the Democrats don't support them, and the Republicans obviously don't, it feels like the mask slipping that this is just a capitalist oligarchy, and everyone's in the pockets of big money. And so, like, we can all play the game until somebody comes in who's running as a socialist, and then the mask kind of comes off a bit. That feels like conspiracy in my head. So please talk me out of that, right? Everybody has their own actual reasons why they do and don't support Mamdani other than big money, right? Please.
So I think there's a couple of things here, and I don't know if it's all malicious.
Okay, please give me information.
I do think that psychologically there is a fear. I think that there can be people in power who go, oh crap, this guy is a socialist. That means that, taxes are going to go up, businesses are going to leave. I think that there are people within the political establishment who do think that socialism can actually do damage. And the issue being is that most democratic socialists in America aren't democratic socialists. They're just radical social democrats who want to make sure that people can live, without having to put their entire paycheck into rent, which is what a lot of people do in New York City. And like, when's the last time that we heard Bernie Sanders, AOC, or even Mamdani, once he starts actually getting into what policies he wants to pass, have they ever put into or written a policy that says, okay, we're going to start giving the workers the means of production? No, they don't do that.
Well, that's not socialism. That's communism.
But there was also the idea that socialism has like the idea that they want to workers have more power within the places that they work, and they don't really do that. They do like union support. When's the last time that we really saw them put out like a union strengthening bill? I don't remember AOC doing that in some time. I think that, yes, but going back to your original question, Bernie Sanders also had this happen to him when he ran in Vermont, and he was running for, I think, House Rep, when he was still just a House Rep. The Democrats and Republicans actually both backed the same candidate. So we do see Republicans and Democrats banding together to make sure that left-wing politicians do not come into office. But I don't necessarily agree with you that it's all just some malicious intent where we're just trying to make money. I do think that there are people out there that are petrified at the idea that a socialist will run the trade epicenter of the world and what kind of damage that could possibly do in their minds. But I think, but Tori might have a different opinion on that.
Tori, do you?
I mean, I can definitely see that, and I've been really, honestly, a little bit weirded out by the response, just because, like, okay, if that is actually your concern with Mamdani, that he's going to, I don't know, bankrupt New York City in order to make rent affordable or whatever, like, why all the Islamophobia? If you're actually concerned about his policies, like, to me, I would, if you can't condemn somebody's policies without getting like racist or xenophobic or, whatever, why, like, just condemn his policies if that's actually what you're afraid of. To me, the like accusations of anti-Semitism and just like the blatant like Islamophobia from both sides of the aisle, I would say it's very obvious. Like, there's just volume wise, there's more of it from the right, but there are Democrats who are also engaging in this Islamophobia around Mamdani.
I mean, look what Cuomo put out in those pamphlets where they darkened his skin and his beard just to make him look more quote unquote like radical. Yeah,
Jesus.
Scary.
I didn't even know that. I do kind of want to revisit because maybe I didn't say this right. What I'm worried about as a conspiracy is I'm more and more convinced that the United States is more an oligarchy than it is a democracy. That we have parties and that's great, but whoever gets elected really needs campaign donations in order to make that happen. That everything is currently run through so much money that the power is really concentrated in the hands of a few, which is the definition of an oligarchy. The capitalist piece of that is that I feel like it is money that is determining where that power lies. I don't think that there's a secret shadow organization. I don't think that there's like a Bilderberg kind of, like type of group, I don't go in for that. But I do think that when I say mask off, it feels like exactly what you said, right? You have people who are going, oh, well, this is going to affect my money, and so I'm going to be against it, be it Democrat or Republican. And it feels like the difference between Democrat and Republican goes away when everybody is just against something because it's not capitalistic. And so when I was saying that, I feel like I'm developing this conspiracy theory in my brain around that. And then your response is, well, they could have good capitalist reasons. Like, it feels like you're just supporting my conspiracy. it feels like, it's not this. It's just exactly this.
It's going to be every ideology. Every ideology is going to band together to defend itself against other ideologies. I mean, that's not going to be unexpected, right?
It is when some inner child is going, what isn't democracy supposed to be the point? Like it does feel like a sin when the goal was representation by the people for the people and the rules got changed somewhere along the way. We were sold a false bill of goods, and that's the thing that's frustrating me. I guess it's okay to be internally consistent as an oligarchy if that's just what we're gonna be. Just say it, But we were sold this idea of a democracy, and then that's not what we got.
I mean, I agree with you, but I think that even in a true democracy, you would still have these coalitions of ideology fighting against one another, and try,
I mean, like the West Wing, right? Where people are gonna disagree with each other, and they're gonna at least respect that. I might not agree with you, but this is the process that things are gonna come out in, and if those sides are equal, if those sides are coming, at this from this, it's not equal. It's not. No, I wouldn't say it's equal now. No, but I don't know. Like, let's say in the next couple of years, and we get a Democratic president who gets rid of the Electoral College, who puts in ranked choice voting, all the things that we want for people to be activated politically. I don't think we would see that massive of a change, at least at first. I think that a Democrat president is going to be just as in the pocket of billionaires as a Republican one.
Right, but that's not really the point I'm trying to drive at. My drive is like, so they pass all these laws to make it so that the process is more what you and I would call democratic, right? In the next 4 years, I don't see there to be a drastic change in how people vote. I think that there'll be like fringe-like changes, and those changes will occur over drastic amount of time. But I really don't think if we had ranked choice voting, got rid of the electoral college, that people's voting habits are going to change all that much.
So, I don't know. This is a question to both of you who I feel probably interact more in politics than I do. Like, what I'm wondering is, like, at this fundamental level of, I'm saying that it feels like they're all on the same side. That everybody's needing to take huge amounts of money, and the biggest decider on what a politician's going to do is who's bankrolling them. And if that's the case, and that happens with Democrats and Republicans, then your response about the voting behavior of people doesn't come into it. Because my concern wasn't about voting behavior, because both of them are having the exact same issue, which is, making their decisions based on who's bankrolling them. Right? Like voting behavior doesn't come into it, does it?
What if those laws also were to make it so that Citizens United was to be wiped, and that each candidate that runs for office can only have this set amount of money?
If that happened, then I think that I would feel a lot better, and I would not have this problem.
But do you think that people's voting habits would change, really?
At this point, I don't know.
I feel like if some people would probably feel more enfranchised, and so you probably would
there
see
might be more people
turnout.
voting. I would agree with that.
That's my theory.
Yeah. I definitely think that you would see policies that benefit the people more. I think that there would be a economic stabilization. But I don't know. I'm just angry, Ethiopagan. I'm just angry.
I've gotten past anger. I'm in apathy at this point.
Can I ask a question though, Ethiopagan? Because I am really curious, as someone who lives in what is purported to be like a bombed out, like smoking crater of a city.
Oh, yeah.
What's the vibe like in New York right now?
I mean, like, I live in a part of New York City that is heavily. It's interesting. There's a couple of Jewish centers right next door to me. And there's also a heavy Muslim population in almost all the apartment buildings around me. So, like, we see Jewish and Muslim people just interacting daily all around me. And we don't see
the streets.
These issues that people are constantly saying, oh, the Muslims and the Jews hate each other, blah, blah, blah. I mean, we just got the report that this was the only July 4th ever where there was not a shooting or a shooting death on July 4th. And overall, I think that things are, people are just worried about expenses here. We're worried about rents continuing to go high because, like, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment and I'm paying $2,100 a month for rent here a month, and that's
that
probably on the lower end of things. If you go to Manhattan, like, you're looking at $3,000 for a studio apartment, if that. Get a closet with a shared bathroom for your floor. Those are the problems that New Yorkers are really dealing with. I don't hear people really going off about, oh, the illegal immigrants are coming in and taking all our jobs. There are factions within that, like Silwa, for example, the Republican candidate. But if you go to, like, day-to-day New Yorkers, we don't care. we go around, we do our thing. We're like, hey, how you doing? And, we talk to people, and if they have an accent, most New Yorkers are pretty good with accents. We work through it, and we don't really engage with it. I mean, I work for a social worker organization, and we have DACA recipients as well as undocumented immigrants on our caseloads, and it's just something we do. We don't care.
It's almost like people
Honestly,
are people.
Yeah, it's almost like when you see, and that's a thing. Like when you work with people every day who have different accents, even if they're not undocumented, you're working with countless people who are immigrants or are from all over the country, all over the world on a day-to-day basis.
I mean,
Listening to different people with different accents, different languages. It's just something you do in a metropolitan area like New York City.
yeah. I get it for sure. Atheo, we do have one more caller, and I know we're short on time.
Have fun.
But are we going to see you in the after show?
I'll flirt with you there. Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
All right.
thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
V knows about Aethiopagan. This is okay. Sunny in Indiana. You're live on the show. Hey.
Hi, Sunny.
Hello, Tori. All right. I've been listening to a lot of Go Home Bible here lately. I've got like this weird parasocial relationship going with Tori right now. You're like my bestie. So
For people who
This is amazing.
for people who don't
Yeah.
follow Tori's podcasts, Tori, you have 2 podcasts, Go Home Bible, You're Drunk.
We do, yes. And White Homework. And
Yes,
yeah,
both
Go
are
Home Bible, You're
excellent.
Drunk. We had Transvangelical on the show for like 2 hours talking about, we're always talking about how like Paul was the sex worker and Jesus was trans. And this is like our theology, our guiding theology on the show is non-believers. So Sunny,
No, my
I'm
next-
so
my
happy
next
to hear
listeners
that.
go
That's
home
so
with us for sure.
awesome.
yeah. So yeah, I had a bit of a weird experience recently that I wanted to share with you guys, and it led me to my topic that's in the show Q thingy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that big disgusting bill that just passed. I did everything I could to stop it. I called my representatives, and something weird happened when I called. Calling my representatives is something that I do several times a year. I'm fairly
Nice.
politically active, and every time that I call to give my opinion on something, it's just a normal thing. You give your name, you give your address, and I do it without a second thought.
Yeah.
This time I paused. I had an instinctual gut reaction, like when they asked for my name and address this time, like, do I feel safe giving this information? And I knew that felt weird to have that response, but still it was like a gut reaction to that. And of course I still gave my name and my address when I gave my opinion that I did not want my representatives to support the bill. But it brought this question to mind. I have this fear that it seems like our democracy might be tilting towards totalitarianism or authoritarianism.
Yeah.
And it has me worried that at what point does it become unsafe to give your name and address when you call to give an opinion that goes against the powers that be? And I was wondering what your opinions were on that.
So the line that I personally drew that my mother knows is that if content creators start getting disappeared, if YouTubers start getting disappeared, we're out.
Yeah.
I think the line generally should probably be somewhere before being on a show. But I don't know. What do you think, Tori?
That's basically my line too. I'm like, I don't know. It's weird. I think that we are very much on this trend towards, political enemies, because of, we didn't even get into this, right? But Laura Loomer the other day, who is ostensibly sleeping with the president, tweeted
live
this
from the
thing about
alligator.
how, What?
Sorry, go ahead, please.
Tweeted about how with the concentration camp in Florida, the alligator Alcatraz, cutesy name that they gave a concentration camp, that she thinks that there are 65 million alligator meals, and the Latino population of the United States is 65 million, right? So it was it was pretty clear what she was talking about there, right?
Yeah.
A huge number of Latino people are white. Spanish is a European language, right? So it's like if you're a white person with an accent and you're gonna be like sent to the camps to become alligator food, this is how I'm processing it as like a mixed race Black person, is like, okay, that means that like white political enemies are also on that list, right? At that point, there's like,
Right.
And so, yeah, I think that that's sort of my line too, is it's like, okay, once I see it starting to happen, and I think that there will be a lot of noise, like the first time it happens, right? The first time that somebody is like arrested for calling the representative, and complaining about legislation, there will probably be that first one, there'll probably be a lot of noise. Like the first one we didn't hear about, there'll probably be a lot of noise. There'll probably be a lot of red flags that go out, and we'll probably, realistically, based on the trends, we'll probably be able to get that person back, right? But that's the point at which it's like, okay, maybe there are other ways to do this. I don't know. Maybe you go to like a town hall.
Do you think there are signs
or
leading up to
something?
that? Like, I hate for the first sign to be it happens.
Yes, I agree, and I don't know what else we can really do, because anything other than it's happened is kind of conjecture or conspiracy theories, So it's like, until there's like a punishment, and maybe it wouldn't be disappearing someone, right? Maybe it would be like, oh, you're going to spend the night in jail. And actually, we are seeing that, right? Like they're taking people out of town halls and arresting them for being there, right? And for speaking their minds.
Even like on a small town level, locally in my small town, which I'm not going to mention my small town name, but I'm sure this is happening in a lot of places. I'm in a very, very, very conservative area. We're lucky we had a No Kings protest. I'm very proud of the people that showed up. We had 30 people. Call back to actually what you guys were talking about on Go Home Bible. You were talking about like small towns that have like a very small population of people, but a certain percentage still showed up, and it's amazing. Yeah. We're lucky we had anybody show up at all. We have a population of like 12,000 people, and we had 30 protesters show up. Wow. And it was amazing. But our population is, like, we had more people angrily finger waggling at us than we had support. But we still showed up. And recently, unfortunately, our local Democratic HQ office I guess somebody made a comment at the Democrat HQ that got them into some trouble. I guess it sounded like a vague threat towards the president. It was related to the No Kings protest. I think it was probably their 8647 sign they had or something. And they got so many death threats, both the chair and the co-chair had to step down. And they had to have emergency chair and co-chair step up so that the Democrat HQ didn't just shut down. But there are efforts like this to just silence dissent locally. And I'm afraid that that's going to keep happening, and our like areas like mine are at a high risk of just not having diversity at all. And that's another red flag, I guess.
Yeah, that is not actually terribly uncommon. I completely agree. I think it is probably good to be, lean on, like, don't put don't send certain comments like digitally, right? Like, don't put certain things on your site. I'm not, obviously, like, free speech is important, but like, if we're not going to have that, I think it is wise to be proactive and just take that extra step in being cautious. I'm not to victim blame at all, but like, you do make yourself a target in certain areas, especially in an area that it sounds like you're explaining is incredibly, incredibly conservative. That like, be not to victim blame, but be cautious when you go out there, because it's not safe. Right. And so you have to protect yourself and make sure that you are, like you said, with a group of people, like organize with folks and like make sure that you're getting to know your neighbors or the people that you're organizing with on, make sure you're on a first name basis or have an email address or something like that, right? So that you can be connected with folks. It really is hard to like build with strangers like you do. It's important to build trust. And that's why we were so supportive of the No Kings protest, was because it's like, this is building a muscle of getting out there, and, safety in numbers, right? But like also we have to get back into post lockdown, I think, and COVID, we have to get into that habit again of like, what does it look like for me as a person taking, the precautionary measures I need to take to be putting myself out there and taking a stand. And I don't think it's going to be safe. Right. So everybody's got to measure, do their own risk analysis. But like, if you can be the more connected you can be with other people, the safer you will be. Right. And so that's how I would kind of go about that's how I think about those kinds of things.
Thank you for saying that, Tori. I think that's so important. I think that we can get so wrapped up in like the revolution and getting so excited about getting, revved up and making change and stuff that we forget that there are risks involved, especially in locations like mine. And it's so important that you make that point. So thank you for saying that, Tori. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for the show. I know it's the end, so I will be gone now, but thank you guys so much. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sunny.
All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
What a sweet person. That felt her energy their energy I love it. I love it. Mm-hmm. What an amazing community. I gotta say, I mentioned that I forgot to charge patrons this last month, and we got a good number of super chats that are trying to help. So I'm so, so grateful. And I want to make sure that I read the super chats before we move on.
Let's do it.
So holy smokes. So before the show even started, Sean Isherwood sent 15 pounds, 3 individual pieces. Sean Isherwood is very advanced into math and sends proofs and things like that. Sean began or really kind of entered into this conversation with me about the laws of logic. So Sean believes that there are examples of the laws of logic being violated pretty regularly. And I'm like, that cannot happen. And so we continue. And Sean tends to bring me mathematical proofs, only some of which I understand. So I'm going to do my best here. Sean says the smallest hating algebra that is not Boolean contains only 0, 1/2, and 1 as truth values, violating the law of excluded middle. I don't think you could point to sets and say that they violate a law of excluded middle. If you're going to define a set as such, then it is what it is, isn't what it isn't, and can't be what it is and what it isn't at the same time. In respective truth tables, for, or, and implies are 3x3 matrices, and for not a 3x2 matrix with entries 0, 1/2, and 1, and not 1/2. I do not understand that. I apologize. When I say 1/2 or not 1/2 equals 1/2, I mean, when considering 1/2 as a truth value in the hating algebra, not as the number, it's like true and not true equals true. Well, I don't know. Like if we were just to talk about, digits away from 0, then a half is still a half, whether you're in positive or negative. It really depends on how you're defining it as such. But as long as a thing holds a definition, then it needs to have those 3 laws of logic in order for it to be consistent. So if you're able to create a system where that makes sense, then you still need to be intelligible to the people who are using it, and that intelligibility is requiring the laws of logic. So I may need more, but I'm still not buying it. But thank you. Thompson412 sent $5 and says FWIW. What's FWIW?
For what it's worth.
For what it's worth, I don't think a real person who believes that John says would be able. I don't think a real person who believes what John says would be able to specify where they get their info either, and would just dodge. Oh God, that's scary. I have to imagine if somebody's getting their info from a source, they can list the source. But like, I feel like the generic thing that a leftist would say is, oh, you know, Fox News and Alex Jones. But like, if you watch OAN, if you watch, you know, Freedom News Network or whatever the case is, I feel like you'd have some more specifics to what you watch. So I have to imagine there'd be at least a little bit more. Like if you listen to a specific host, name the host. If you, you know, whatever, you know, if you watch a show, you would name the show. And that's not what John did, which is what set off the red flag for me. Joshua Everett sent $5 and says, cash for kitty yawns. Thank you, Josh. CG Dancer sent $20. Thank you, CG. Says, oh no, hope this helps a little bit towards the Patreon mishap. Pura vida. So CG is in Portland. We got to meet up with CG. Wouldn't that be fun?
Hell yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah. Tomps412 said, don't know if I can make the after show, so I'll ask here. How did you not charge patrons? Isn't that stuff automatic? Well, I charge per episode. So if we do 4 episodes in a month, I charge 4 times. If there's a 5th weekend of the month, sometimes we just don't do a show, but I don't like charging 5 times in a month. I usually charge at the end of the month, and I was particularly feeling depressed at the end of June and completely missed the opportunity to charge patrons. So that's entirely on me. But Aethiopagan sent $50. Thank you, Aethiopagan. And says, I win always. Aethiopagan is in a donating war, which I fully support. Patty Chris sent $9.99. Thank you. Says, Guy, find an old white lady to hang out with. Preferably one with a grudge. I volunteer. Which one of you is going to put me up? I'm only half kidding. I hate this time.
Amazing.
That's fair. I've definitely had old white ladies have my back, and they can be pretty vicious.
Yep.
Sean Isherwood sent £2. Thank you, Sean. Says, I think you butchered those super chats. I probably did. Sean sent Sean sent the math at the very beginning, but like, come on, I'm reading it live on air. It takes me time to really. I sincerely apologize. Wow, all of that actually, I think, comes out to probably about $80-$90, which is amazing. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, the show usually makes about 400. Sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more. But that is actually a good step into helping make sure that I can pay for Collins Studio. So thank you. This show is supported by you. It's a labor of love. It's something we love doing, and we're so happy that you're here. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your support. Tori, we got to hang out. I miss you.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, definitely. And
ASAP.
Yeah. I hopefully around my birthday in the next couple of days. We should do something for both of our birthdays. Right? I know. We could treat each other to dinner.
Are you busy this weekend? Let's hang out. We'll talk after the show.
Yes. Okay. Sounds good. Actually, everybody can talk after the show because we're going to be hopping into Discord for the after show. So come say hi. But let's wrap this up. Tori, I'm sure you remember the outro. I know it's been a month and a half, but you got this. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you for our incredible volunteers who are moderating this and helping make sure that we can do this without trolls or any of that. What an amazing community. We love you guys. Until next time, I'm Eric Murphy.
I'm Tori Williams Douglas.
This is Skeptic Generation.
I'm glad we had this talk.